The premature birth of a baby is a stressful experience for families. The birth may have happened unexpectedly or after a period of time where the mother or unborn baby were unwell. After the birth, there is often uncertainty and worry about the baby's health. There may be worry about the mother's health. Parents and babies are separated for periods of time, and parents are parenting in a medical environment.
So visiting him for the first time was quite surreal. It was a traumatic start to his life in that I didn't feel the baby kicking, and the hospital told me to come in and just see if everything was all right. And I rocked up to the hospital thinking it'll probably just be an overreaction, and they said no, everything is not all right and he needs to be taken out. So it was all a real whirlwind. And, hours later, he was delivered by emergency cesarean. So I guess it probably took half a day to properly see him. And that first time I saw him, I guess my maternal instincts really kicked in, just wanting to, talk to him and be close to him and put my hands on him and hug him. But, I couldn't. So there was this real, tear between wanting to be close but not being able to be, because he was so fragile and hooked up to so many monitors and, in a box.
Common feelings or experiences for parents after preterm birth might include feeling worried, anxious, overwhelmed, lost, afraid, guilty, feeling grief, confusion or anger, and positive emotions such as joy and love and happiness when they're spending time with their baby.
It was an emotional soup. There were lots of emotions. There was fear and anxiety, hope and looking forward to getting him home. There was sadness as well, sadness of the loss of experience of what should have been just a normal birth and a normal start to life. And some days, it felt really terrifying. It really varied, and it was quite a roller coaster of emotions.
Parents' responses after the premature birth of a baby are influenced by many different factors, including the baby's gestational age and medical progress, the parent's own previous life experiences, personal history, and their own mental health, the social support and other life stresses that might be happening at the time. And also, parents' responses can change over time. While each parent will have their own individual experience, research suggests that shortly after the birth, up to 40 to 50% of mothers and fathers of babies born less than 32 weeks will experience significantly elevated symptoms of depression and anxiety. And some parents may also experience symptoms of post-traumatic stress. While research with mothers and fathers suggests that this distress does tend to decrease over time, some parents continue to experience symptoms of depression and anxiety over time. Or for others, it may be months or even years after the birth that these sorts of feelings and experiences arise.
A lot of people just think a preemie baby was cute and small and little, and as soon as they're home from hospital, everything's okay. However, the legacy of that trauma and the ongoing stress of having a vulnerable baby lingers for a lot of people. It was so wonderful to get him home, but I think from the 6-month mark onwards is when the sleep deprivation started to really take its toll, and the getting out and about into the world more and having anxiety about him, getting sick from other people around and worrying about whether he was going to crawl over or walk over to a little kid that was sick. So for me, there was a bit of a delay really in terms of knowing that I needed help. It wasn't immediate. It sort of snuck up on me. And again, it's like little by little by little, you start to realize that you're just not happy and stressed all the time and angry and irritable and not enjoying life. And it's like watching hair grow. You don't really see it until you've got really long hair, which for me, probably took a couple of years, quite frankly, to realise that I was continuing to suffer more than I perhaps would have if I would have had a baby full term and, without any kind of complications. So once I realised that I wasn't sleeping and had developed, severe insomnia and was angry and irritable and anxious and just not happy most of the time, and it was impacting my relationships, then, I decided to do something about it.
It's important to consider that mental health is experienced and expressed in different ways for different people. For example, some symptoms of distress might be felt more within your body, such as feeling tense or wound up, lacking in energy, or having difficulty concentrating. You might notice a change to your usual behaviour or routines like sleeping or eating, or the energy and motivation to do the usual things you do. Some symptoms may be related more to how you're feeling and your emotions or your relationships with others. Feeling sad or flat in mood from time to time is normal. But depression involves feeling this way intensely for long periods of time and in a way that interferes with daily functioning and enjoyment of life. Anxiety is a normal response to something that could be stressful, difficult, or dangerous. And it's normal for parents of babies who are born prematurely to worry about their child's health and development. But some parents experience very strong and persistent anxiety about their baby or their health, their own role as a parent or their relationships, or other things that they're juggling in life, such as finances and workplace. Post-traumatic stress symptoms can develop for some individuals after they've experienced a traumatic event that has threatened their own life or safety or that of others around them. And for some parents, the experiences around their baby's premature birth can be traumatic. Mental health problems can have a significant impact on parents' quality of life, on relationships, and our functioning in daily life. Mental health problems in parents also have the potential to influence the way that they parent and interact with their baby and their child's development. It's important that parents have access to support for their mental health. Practicing self-care every day, looking after our sleeping, eating, keeping active, and keeping involved with activities that you enjoy and you find relaxing, maybe walking, watching TV, listening to music.
So at the time, I was so focused on my baby. I was so single-minded on looking after him, and I really think I sacrificed myself. I didn't go out. I just wanted to hibernate at home and not expose him to germs. And having been out of the house for 63 days, visiting him in the NICU, being at home was actually a luxury. But in that, I sacrificed, my needs for socialization and just even having time away from him. When he first came home, all I wanted to do was be with him, I guess to compensate for having been away from him for so long. And my husband was the same. So we were both on the same page with that. But it was like looking back, sort of drip, 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 all adds up to one day you realise that, well, you don't realise at the time, but in hindsight that actually I wasn't caring for myself and I wasn't filling up my cup, as it were. And that, with retrospect, took its toll.
Additional professional support should be considered if you're feeling like you would like some additional help to support your mental health or with coping with the experience of having a baby born prematurely. You might also consider additional help if your symptoms of anxiety, depression, or stress are not getting any better, Or maybe they're getting worse and you're feeling more distressed. Maybe you're feeling like your symptoms are starting to have a significant negative impact on your day-to-day living and functioning, on your health or your relationships, or your enjoyment of life in general, or being a parent and connecting with your family.
So it can be hard to know when the exact right time to reach out for help is. However, if you stop and ask yourself, is this impacting on my life? Are things that I normally would do or the way I normally would be? If that's changing, then that's the right time to get help. So if I normally sleep well and I'm not sleeping well for a prolonged period of time, and again, that's hard to measure, but if it's impacting on relationships such that there are more arguments and there's more tension, if it impacts your functioning, so normally you'd be able to either go to work or go to a social event, but going to work is harder or going to a social event is harder, then that's the time to ask for help. If you notice yourself avoiding things, avoiding certain conversations or certain places or certain situations out of fear, and that's interrupting your life, then that's a time to reach for help. If it's affecting your relationship with your baby in that you're not getting as much joy as you perhaps ordinarily would. I mean, that's hard to measure, of course, because being a young parent or a new parent is, fraught with a lot of stress, with sleeplessness and uncertainty anyway. But if there isn't some balancing moments of joy and the ability to relax in between, if it's constant, if it's unrelenting, and if you really are overwhelmed with negative emotions more so than, having positive emotions and balance in your life, then that's the time to ask for help. I would say to myself, you're going through a real trauma right now. It's a highly stressful situation. And I'd really validate that. I would, I would call it what it is. And I would be compassionate to myself for all the emotional responses I was having. But I'd also, really validate it as being an extremely stressful situation, and tell myself to look after myself a bit better, and tell myself to reach out and get some professional support with someone who really knows a bit about what it's like to have a baby in NICU, so that I could get through that period better than I know, but now looking back, know that I did. I did the best that I could, but with the hindsight, I didn't. I could have dealt with it better if I had better support.
Having a baby born prematurely is a stressful experience for parents and families. For many parents, the distress, sadness and anxiety that they may experience in the early days and weeks will reduce over time, but this is not the case for everyone. There are things that parents can do to nurture their own well-being, such as self-care activities and asking for support from family and friends. There are also effective psychological interventions that can help to improve experiences of depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress. These services can be accessed through referrals from within the hospital or through your GP.
If you stop and ask yourself the question, am I suffering more than perhaps I need to? Am I struggling? Is this harder than perhaps, other parents around me? Then that's a good time to reach out for help. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't have a disorder as such, but it's hard. It's suffering, and humans need other humans to help them when they are suffering. And so take-home tips would be to validate that, acknowledge that, be kind to yourself and compassionate to yourself for that suffering that you might be going through, and do something to help ease that so that you can get more joy and have and enjoy the benefits of your baby when they're there.